Before everything went off the rails, life felt relatively simple. My routine was all about work, raising the kids, and savoring those little moments that made it all seem worth the effort. Emily and I had the suburban dream. A nice house, for kids, and careers that gave us a sense of stability. I thought we had a solid family, making the usual sacrifices for the kids' future. But, looking back now, the cracks were already forming, even if I didn't see them then. At first, Emily's growing distance felt like the usual wear and tear of life. Raising 4 kids, balancing work, and managing the household. I was tired too, so I didn't think much of it. But, in the quiet moments, something felt off. She became harder to reach, emotionally distant, and I started feeling like a stranger in my own home. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it gnawed at me. I tried to push those feelings aside, focusing on being a good dad, but the unease only deepened. One morning, I was trying to get the kids ready for our trip. "Let's go, everyone. Grab your bags and head to the car," I yelled, trying to organize the usual chaos. "I can't find my sunglasses," one of them called. "Check on top of your head," I replied, and sure enough, they found them. We loaded up the old Subaru, a bit beaten up but still reliable, and got ready to head to the airport for our Disney World vacation. Emily had wanted to delay the trip until summer because she had some work event in New York, but I pushed back. I wasn't going to wait. So, she went to New York, and I took the kids to Florida. The kids were beyond excited for Disney, and I made sure we hit all the big attractions. My main job was to keep everything running smoothly, meals, schedules, and making sure the kids stayed somewhat healthy. I insisted they have fruit, vegetables, and milk with breakfast, and I made sure dinner was balanced, too. I wasn't letting them live on junk food, no matter how tempting it was at the parks. Each day followed the same routine. After hitting the rides, we'd head back to the hotel by 4 p.m. for some pool time, then clean up for dinner. After dinner, the kids could swim again if they wanted, but by 9 p.m., they were in bed, teeth brushed, and ready for sleep. By 9:30, they were usually knocked out from all the fresh air and excitement, leaving me with some quiet time. I'd crack open a beer, catch up on work emails, and make sure they called Emily. She always picked up, pretending everything was fine, but I knew better. For years now, I've known the truth about Emily. She's been cheating on me, and I know more than she thinks. I've known for a while that I'm not the biological father of our kids. That realization hit hard when a doctor mentioned my blood type didn't match David's. After some DNA tests, my worst fears were confirmed. I wasn't their real father. It was devastating, but I couldn't let it destroy my relationship with the kids. They are my world, no matter what. The biological father? A guy named Ryan. Emily's been obsessed with him for years. He works for his father's construction company and has always lived a life of privilege. His father, Greg, built a successful business, and Ryan learned early on that money could fix most problems. Emily is infatuated with him, though I honestly don't see the appeal. From my perspective, he's a complete idiot. Ryan's life looks perfect on the outside. He married Susan after she got pregnant, and they live in a world of wealth and comfort. But I know Ryan's not really happy, and neither am I. When I first met Emily, I was head over heels for her. She was everything I thought I wanted: tall, blonde, smart, and beautiful. We married quickly, and before I knew it, we had 4 kids. My life became a blur of work, family, and more work. Occasionally, I carved out time for myself, usually running in the mornings before the kids woke up, just to clear my head. But my identity had become wrapped up in being a father, and that was all that mattered. For kids depended on me for everything, and I took that seriously. Emily had always been a good mother. I'll give her that. She stayed home with the kids in the early years, then went back to work, and things seemed fine. But her job and Ryan became the real problems. That's when the lies started stacking up, and I had to face the harsh reality of what my marriage had become. I didn't find out about the affair until about 3 years ago. It wasn't a dramatic discovery, just a quiet moment at the doctor's office when my blood type didn't match David's. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake, but after retesting and doing some digging, the truth was undeniable. Emily had been unfaithful for nearly our entire marriage. Ryan was the biological father of our children. It was like a punch to the gut, but I kept it to myself. Confronting her would have blown everything apart, and for the kids' sake, I chose to carry that burden alone. So here I am, playing the role of the devoted husband and father, all while knowing the truth. Emily continues to live her double life, pretending to be the perfect wife and mother, but I see through it. She doesn't realize how much I know, and for now, I plan to keep it that way. I'm not ready to destroy the life we've built, even if it's built on lies. I've always worked hard for my family, but after learning the truth about Emily's affair, I realized I needed a safety net in case she ever left me for Ryan. Despite her infidelity, Emily seemed happy with our life. The house, the kids, her job. She never complained to me. When I found out I wasn't the biological father of our children, I fell into a deep depression, unsure of what to do. I even consulted a lawyer, but the options were grim. Divorce would likely mean Emily got custody, and I'd still be financially responsible for the kids, even though they weren't biologically mine. The courts don't care about fairness. They care about the kids being provided for. My lawyer made it clear that walking away would only hurt them, and I couldn't do that. They see me as their dad, and I love them more than anything. So, I came up with a plan. I decided to keep my discovery a secret, at least for a while. I figured it would take me 2 to 4 years to prepare my long-term exit strategy. In the meantime, I started funneling money into a separate account. I invested wisely in stocks like Tesla, Amazon, and Apple, building up a portfolio worth over $6 million. Emily had her secrets, but now I had mine. This money was my safety net, and she knew nothing about it. With another year or so, I'd be ready. I wasn't looking for revenge. I had the kids to think about, but I needed to protect myself. After our anniversary trip, I took the kids to the annual RV show, where they got excited about the idea of traveling the country. They loved the brochures, and we all agreed the Grand Design fifth-wheel trailer was perfect for us. Bunk beds, 2 bathrooms, plenty of space. I needed a truck to pull it, so I bought a new Ford F-250 crew cab, bright red, my favorite color. Emily wasn't thrilled when I came home with the truck. "Michael, we're supposed to discuss big purchases," she said, exasperated. "How much did you spend?" I told her, $90,000 for the trailer, $65,000 for the truck. She looked pale and sat down, clearly overwhelmed. Inside, I was amused. It was a small victory. The kids were thrilled, though, and immediately started organizing their bunks. They insisted on sleeping in the trailer that night, and I convinced Emily to join us. She did, but I knew it was only because of the pressure, from the kids and from me. I could tell camping wasn't really her thing, though. The kids had a blast that weekend, hiking, swimming, and making new friends. Emily spent most of the time swatting bugs and rolling her eyes at the outdoor life. But I knew time was running out. Emily had to make a choice, Ryan or me. Ryan might be their biological father, but I'm the one who raised them, loved them, and was always there. I wasn't going to let some man who sneaks in and out of their lives take that from me. It was almost time to confront her and deal with the mess she had created. A few months later, it was clear I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The kids were happy, and I was as ready as I'd ever be. One Friday night, I came home to find Emily in the kitchen, the kids scattered around the house and yard. For a moment, I took in the scene, my family, the life I had built. But then, the image of Emily with Ryan flashed in my mind, and I knew it was time to act. "Emily," I said, "how about we get a sitter tomorrow night and go out for dinner? We need to talk without interruptions." She seemed pleased at the idea. "That sounds great," she replied. "We need some time alone." I made a reservation at a quiet Italian restaurant for 7 p.m., hoping the atmosphere would make the conversation easier. The next evening, we left the kids with the sitter and headed out. I chose a secluded table where we could talk without distraction. We chatted about the usual, kids, work, but I knew it was time to bring up what had been haunting me for years. "Emily, we need to talk about something I know you don't want to discuss," I began. Her expression turned serious as she nervously asked, "What is it, Michael?" I pressed on. "How much longer are you planning to keep seeing Ryan?" She was stunned, coughing and trying to deny it, but I continued, asking how long this affair was going to last. "Another year? 5? Her reaction was unforgettable. She turned pale, struggling to breathe, and I thought she might pass out. I called the waiter, said Emily was feeling unwell, and asked for the check and a barf bag. We left quickly, knowing it was probably the last time we'd dine there. In the car, she sat in silence before erupting, vomiting all over the parking lot, hitting both her shoes and mine in the mess. The drive home was quiet. Once there, she headed straight to the bedroom to clean up while I reassured the kids that she wasn't feeling well. Later, I found her sitting on the bathroom floor, a mess. I helped her undress and get into the shower, then took her clothes to the laundry. The shoes were beyond saving. Emily stayed in the shower for nearly 40 minutes, processing the past decade with Ryan and what she'd do next. But it wasn't my problem anymore. It was hers. Emily eventually came out of the shower, dressed in pajamas, and went straight to bed. I poured myself a beer and sat, thinking about the mess we were in. My priorities were clear. The kids first, me second, Emily last. That night, I slept in the spare bedroom. In the morning, I made coffee and brought a cup to Emily, who was curled up in bed. She slowly sat up. I reminded her that the kids would be up soon and that we had things to do. She was unusually quiet all day, barely speaking to me or the kids. That night, after the kids were in bed, I expected Emily to talk, but she just went to the bedroom and closed the door. I heard her on the phone, likely talking to Ryan. They were both busted, and I knew Ryan must be panicking. But I wasn't about to let this go. I poured myself a beer and brought Emily a glass of wine. "So, when are we going to talk?" I asked, handing her the wine. "I don't know what to say," she replied, her voice trembling. "Let's start at the beginning. I know you've been with Ryan for a long time, longer than we've been married. I feel like an outsider, like you've been lying to me the whole time." She looked at me with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I'm so sorry I did that to you. Do you love Ryan so much that you wanted him to be their father?" I asked. She didn't answer. After a long silence, I said, "What's your plan? What do you want to do?" Emily remained speechless. "If you don't have a plan, then I do. You might not like it, but it's up to you to decide what you want." I then told her I'd spoken to the kids, telling them I had a job opportunity elsewhere, and they were excited about moving. I knew this was a threat to her life with Ryan, and the idea of losing him must have been overwhelming. I told her, "You have a decision to make. Tell me and the kids what you want," and then I left the room. As I walked out, I added, "I think it's best if you sleep in the spare bedroom." Meanwhile, I had my plan. Operation Exodus, OPEX, ready to go. Phase 1 had been in motion for years, building my financial resources to secure my future. The only question was whether Emily would choose to make amends or decide her future was with Ryan. I wasn't in a rush. I'd let her and Ryan sweat a bit longer. I continued giving Emily the silent treatment, making her reconsider her actions while keeping her and Ryan guessing about my next move. I wanted Emily to understand that what she had done had consequences. Most importantly, I was determined to maintain my role as the father of my children. There was no way I'd let them be taken from me. I had the resources to fight, and I would do whatever it took to ensure Emily couldn't take the kids away. It was unclear whether Emily fully grasped the gravity of her deceit, but she would need to make a decision soon. If not, I had a plan to push her along. 3 months later, Jessica told me she wanted to train for a triathlon and asked for a new racing bike. We went to the bike shop and found one, light, fast, and expensive, about $2,000. With all the gear, the total came to around $3,000. She's a bit like me. I used to race mountain bikes when I had the time. David wants to play hockey, and his gear will cost about $3,000 this year, not counting high-tech sticks. Nicole wants to play soccer, which is thankfully cheaper, and Amanda is into music lessons and basketball. The kids' schedules are overwhelming, and I can't handle it alone. Emily will need to help, even if it interferes with her time with Ryan. Perhaps that's a good thing. My plan to force Emily to choose between Ryan and the family was nearing completion. The kids played a major role, and 2 months later, I talked to them about it. They were on board, suggesting Emily quit her job to spend more time with us. I assured them we had enough money and it would be better for her to be home. With summer starting, I quietly loaded the camper, including Jessica's new bike, for our trip. The night before we left, I asked Emily, "So, have you made a decision? Are you lonely enough in the spare bedroom?" She didn't answer. I walked away. The next morning, after breakfast, the kids and I finished packing the truck and trailer and hit the road. Without Emily, I knew she'd made her choice. We left Albany and headed for Canada. Jessica navigated while the others excitedly talked about the campground. A week later, we were in Algonquin Provincial Park, Ontario. The scenery was breathtaking, and the kids were having a blast with hiking, swimming, and summer fun. We stocked up on supplies in Huntsville, and the kids picked out some pricey designer hoodies. Why not? I hadn't turned on my phone since we left. If Emily was frantic, wondering where we were, so be it. It was her turn to feel the pain I had felt when I discovered her lies. In a few days, we were heading east to Nova Scotia, stopping along the way. I planned to take the kids to Cape Breton Highlands National Park. It was time to let Emily know we were fine. I had Jessica make the call, timing it for when Emily was likely with Ryan. My goal was to disrupt their routine and remind her that her secret was out. Jessica dialed, and Emily answered, "Michael, is that you?" "Hi, Mom, it's me, Jessica," she replied. Emily's voice was full of concern. "Are you and your siblings okay? Where are you?" Jessica reassured her, sharing our adventures. After each of the kids spoke, the phone was passed to me. I took a deep breath and asked, "So, Emily, how are you?" Her voice pleaded, "Why did you take the kids away? Please come home. Please bring my children back." I responded calmly, "Emily, I sacrificed everything for you, but you won't even give up your lover. If you won't choose us, what do you expect from me? Think about that. I'll call in a couple of weeks to discuss what it means to be a family." I hung up before she could respond and turned off my phone. That night, we had a bonfire and roasted marshmallows until the kids went to bed. I sat alone by the dying fire, wondering if I was doing the right thing. My lawyer was ready to file for divorce and seek sole custody, armed with evidence of Emily's affair. If Emily challenged me with DNA tests, we had enough to show her long-term deception and unfitness as a mother. I wanted to avoid an ugly legal battle, but if that's what it took, I was prepared. I hoped Emily would choose her family over Ryan, but I wasn't sure. Part 2 of my plan was to let Emily experience life without me and the kids. My lawyer warned that Emily might seek a court order to force me to return, so we'd play it out for as long as possible. Before diving into legal action, I consulted with Brian about Emily's situation. Emily hadn't made any moves except to stay home, waiting for us to return. My investigator had been keeping an eye on her, and Brian sent me weekly updates detailing how often Emily and Ryan were meeting. Things between them had cooled somewhat, but I knew that if I returned, Emily would likely think she had won and might try to rekindle her affair. That wasn't an option for me. As the summer drew to a close, the kids were eager to return home and get ready for school. They had accumulated countless stories from our travels that they were excited to share with their friends. It wouldn't be fair to keep them away any longer. We had made plans around the campfire to start our journey back, and the next leg of our trip would be through New England, taking about a week. We pulled into the driveway in the early afternoon. The sight of Emily's car missing from the driveway was oddly comforting. It meant we wouldn't have to face her just yet. I unhooked the trailer, cleaned it a bit, and took a much-needed shower. Noticing the fridge was nearly empty, I sent the kids to bring in food from the trailer. While we were enjoying our meal, I heard a car pulling into the driveway and Emily calling for the kids. The kids rushed outside, and I watched from the kitchen as Emily fell to her knees, hugging them with tears streaming down her face. It was a poignant moment, seeing her so emotional. After they helped her up and walked her into the house, I stayed inside for a moment before quietly heading upstairs. I needed to prepare for the next phase of my plan. I didn't inform anyone of my whereabouts or my plans. I drove to a city hotel, checked in, and booked a room for 2 weeks. This would give me time to find a more permanent residence and start addressing the divorce proceedings. Additionally, I needed to return to work, though I had already decided I would likely quit soon. The job was decent, but I needed a fresh start. After unpacking and setting up my laptop, I went out to buy some of my favorite IPA beers. I returned to my room, settled in, and reflected on the summer's memories with the kids. I wasn't sure what to do with the truck and trailer yet, so I decided to leave them at the house for now and figure out storage later. The next morning, I showed up at the office, half expecting that they might have replaced me. To my surprise, the welcome back was warm and genuine. My boss looked envious, almost wishing he had a 2-month break himself. During our conversation, I mentioned that I was considering a significant change following my summer travels. Naturally, he wanted details, so I floated the idea of working as an independent subcontractor for the company. We planned to discuss specifics next week, but I knew I could always quit and start fresh elsewhere if necessary. Throughout the summer, I had funded our travels from my secret accounts, ensuring I didn't touch our family accounts or credit cards. This way, Emily couldn't trace our expenditures. My meeting with Brian went well. The divorce paperwork was nearly ready. I understood that no court would grant me custody since I wasn't the biological father, and I expected to pay child support for a while. I had come to terms with the possibility of seeing the kids less frequently in the future. At nearly 40, I figured there was still time to start a new chapter in my life. Brian agreed to serve the divorce papers to Emily at home, sparing her public embarrassment. However, Brian later informed me that Emily's lawyer wanted me to meet with her before she would agree to sign anything. I was hoping to avoid another session where Emily might profess her love but refuse to end her affair with Ryan. Nevertheless, Brian suggested that talking with her might expedite the process, so I agreed to meet her that night. I called Emily and arranged to come over after the kids were in bed. When I arrived around 9 p.m., the house was fully lit, and I could tell the kids were still up. David opened the door with a big smile, and I was overwhelmed with emotion as I embraced him. The other kids soon joined in, hugging me tightly. I could hardly contain my tears. Despite everything, they were great kids. Emily stood aside as I interacted with them in the kitchen. After a few minutes, I sent them to bed, reminding them they had school the next day. Once the kids were asleep, Emily and I sat down at the table. She poured herself a small glass of wine and asked, "Are you coming home?" I responded with a question of my own. "What made you think I was coming home?" Emily said, "The kids miss you and need you." "I miss you and need you." Her voice held more sincerity than before, but I wasn't sure if it was enough. "You had plenty of chances to decide what you wanted," I said. "You made your choice a long time ago, and now I've made mine." I asked if Ryan had abandoned her, and she confirmed, "Yes, I'm done with him." Despite her apparent sincerity, I remained skeptical about whether she fully grasped the gravity of the situation or if this was just another attempt to manipulate me. "Are you still working for the company?" Emily asked, her voice tentative. I shook my head. "I quit my job. I'm looking for a new one." That was the first good sign in all of this. Emily's response was immediate and fervent. "Michael, I will be only yours forever." Yours. Her words were meant to reassure, but they felt hollow. I sat there, overwhelmed by a swirl of thoughts and emotions. I couldn't even bear to look at Emily or the kitchen. I closed my eyes, trying to shut out the overwhelming tide of feelings. I thought about my children's faces, their laughter echoing in my mind, and the woman who had once promised me everything. Could I truly give that up? Where had things gone so wrong? What did my future look like without them? I desperately wished I could undo all the pain. Could I stay, or should I go? Deep down, though, I knew Emily's promises were empty. It was all nonsense. She had chosen Ryan for over a decade, and even if their relationship had cooled recently, I didn't believe it would last. If I moved back, Emily and Ryan would simply restart their affair. I had no illusions about it. No matter what Emily said, I knew the final part of my plan was necessary. It would take time, but it would be worth it. 10 years of lies and betrayal. What was that worth? So, despite everything, I moved back home. The kids were ecstatic to have me back, and Emily seemed pleased too. She threw herself into domestic duties, trying to prove what a great mother and wife she could be. Some might think I was weak for returning to Emily after knowing she had been involved with Ryan since before we met. But they were wrong. What wins the battle? Planning and patience. I knew deep down that Emily couldn't change. She had taken breaks from Ryan before, like when the kids were born, but she always returned to him. So what would be different now? Nothing. I knew Emily would wait until she thought I trusted her, then quietly resume her affair with Ryan. So I waited, gathering the evidence I needed to end this sham of a marriage. I met with my lawyer and the investigator, paying for their services to keep the work going. I just needed to let nature take its course. As expected, Emily and Ryan picked up right where they left off within a few months. It was almost amusing to see Emily's overly cheerful demeanor when I got home from work, a thin veil over her guilt after spending an afternoon with Ryan. Time marched on, and I waited for the right moment to escalate my plan. In the meantime, I made a point of having sex with Emily almost every night, except on the days I knew she was with Ryan. On those days, I was extra nice, an attentive husband. I took her out for dinners, did things as a family, bought her flowers and small gifts, and complimented her on her parenting. I wanted to lull her into a false sense of security, to make her believe she had won. I wanted Emily to see what she had thrown away and to fully grasp the mess she and Ryan had created. I wanted her to remember the summer I took the kids to Canada as just a glimpse of her new life. She could have Ryan all she wanted. I wouldn't care anymore. I reminded myself to be patient, to wait, and then to act. June arrived, marking the end of the school year. My meeting with the lawyer and investigator was complete. They had prepared all the documents for Emily and Ryan. I set a date for the server to deliver the papers at my house. I told Emily and the kids we'd be leaving the day after school ended. The trailer was packed with food and everything we'd need for the trip, and I instructed the kids to get their things ready. D-Day arrived. Emily had left for shopping around 8:30, planning to be out for about 3 hours. Perfect timing. By 9 o'clock, the kids and I quickly loaded up the truck and hit the road, heading to parts unknown, at least unknown to Emily. As we were getting ready to leave, my burner phone buzzed on my desk, the one Emily usually texts me on. I kept the ringer off, but I heard it vibrating. I checked the text. "I need to see you right away. Meet me at the apartment in an hour." We hadn't planned on meeting for a while. Her husband had taken time off to use their camper, and he and the kids liked traveling. I don't really consider them my kids, even though she's pregnant with my child. It's odd, but she's great in bed. I wondered what she wanted now. I showed up at the apartment, grabbed a beer, and waited. Emily rushed in a few minutes later, looking upset with a large brown envelope in hand. She tossed it on the table. "Ryan did it. He left with the kids this morning. I got served this," she said, pointing at the envelope. "What do I do?" She sat down, put her face in her hands, then got up, grabbed a glass of wine, and took a large gulp. When she looked at me, I saw fear in her eyes, something I had never seen before, usually just lust. I dumped the envelope's contents on the table and sorted through the papers. I found the divorce documents and quickly scanned them. There were photos attached, with a note saying they were just a sample of what could be used in the divorce process. Emily handed me another envelope with her name on it. "Read this," she said. I read the letter, my heart sinking with each word. The letter was a grim reminder of the situation's gravity. I went back to the divorce papers, found the signature page, and handed her a pen. "Sign now," I said firmly. Emily struggled to find her words, her face etched with panic. "You need to sign this now," she finally said, her voice trembling. "Michael will make our lives miserable if Susan finds out. And your kids, they're yours too." I nodded silently. "Yes, they are." I took a deep drink of beer, feeling the weight of the situation. "Sign the papers, Emily." The stakes were high. If Susan found out, it would ruin everything. Her family's political connections could jeopardize our business, and I liked my big house and the stability of our life. We needed to salvage what we could. I handed her the pen, feeling a mix of resignation and determination. Michael has won. We need to move on. My interest in Emily had diminished. The thrill of having her and getting her pregnant was gone. Now, she was a liability. Emily looked defeated, but took the pen and signed the documents. She collapsed into her chair, exhausted. On the road again, I mused. Cliché, but it was where we were headed. The kids were excited as we traveled west. We aimed to put distance between us and Albany before stopping for the night. I had reserved a spot at an RV park, and we arrived just before supper. Everyone was tired, so I quickly set up the camper and made dinner. We had a campfire that night, roasting marshmallows and talking. The kids had many questions about our journey, and they deserved answers. "I know you're curious about the next few weeks," I said, looking at Nicole and Amanda, who were excitedly recalling our time in Ontario. "There will be adventure, hiking, bugs, and probably a few cuts and scrapes." Nicole and Amanda's eyes lit up with excitement. "Do you guys like horses?" I asked. The kids cheered. Well, I paused. How about riding horses on a ranch in West Texas? The kids ran around the campfire, pretending to be horses. I wasn't entirely sure if this was the right move, but what had I been thinking when I bought that ranch near San Angelo? It was up for auction, and I got it for just over $2 million. The house was a large, 5-bedroom log home with room for renovations. The land covered over 1,500 acres. I planned to convert one outbuilding into a horse barn and had a local farmer interested in grazing cattle to help with costs. Finding good schools for the kids in San Angelo was a concern, but the town had everything we needed. Still, I wondered if West Texas was the right choice. 3 months later, we arrived in San Angelo in late July, after a roundabout trip from Albany. My lawyer reported that Emily signed the divorce papers without issue. Her lawyer reviewed the settlement, which included the house, furniture, bank accounts, both cars, and enough money for Emily to maintain her house for a year. The house, worth about $600,000 with a $150,000 mortgage, would leave Emily with nearly $450,000. I left her a VW Passat, which would serve her well. I took the Subaru and the trailer, packing only essentials. The settlement also included DNA tests confirming I wasn't the biological father of the kids, and Ryan's DNA was compared. Securing sole custody was a priority, with no visitation rights for Emily. My lawyer was prepared to expose everything to Ryan's wife and the public if needed. Emily signed everything, including a clause waiving any future financial support and agreeing to revert to her maiden name. This chapter of my life was closed. So here I was, not yet 40, with 4 kids between 7 and 12, owning a ranch in West Texas, and $7 million in the bank. We moved into the ranch, got everything set up before school started, and the kids were adjusting well. They helped with everything, making the ranch feel like home. Our big day arrived when we went to a horse ranch for riding lessons. The kids were ecstatic. The instructor, Olivia, was a true country girl, checkered shirt, tight jeans, cowboy boots, and a white hat. She was also a veterinarian and barrel racer. The first lesson was fun for the kids but awkward for me, as I had never ridden a horse before. Olivia chose gentle horses for the kids to build their confidence. Then she turned to me. "Okay, Michael, let's meet your horse," she said. "Me?" I protested. I was thinking of getting a quad instead. Olivia gave me a stern look. "You can get the quad, but your kids are learning to ride, and you need to ride with them. Stop arguing and take the reins. This is Pete. He's about 10, and will treat you right if you treat him right." She added quietly, "Besides, the kids are watching. You better get on the horse." Reluctantly, I climbed onto Pete, feeling awkward in my hiking boots and windbreaker, but ready to embrace this new chapter of our lives. After our riding lesson, Olivia suggested we get proper riding gear for the kids and offered to help us shop. When she inquired about my wife, I told her there wasn't a wife anymore. She nodded, taking in the information with a thoughtful expression. "Grab your stuff and get in the truck. Let's go." I called out to the kids, who were already running late for school. The drive was about 20 minutes, and I wanted to ensure they didn't miss the start of the day. Their new school was quite good, and I had made it a point to meet all their teachers and the principal. I wanted them to know they could reach me if there were any issues. I had converted the old weapon room into a dedicated study area and library for them, complete with new bookshelves, desks, computers, tablets, and a high-quality business-grade printer. It felt like a top-notch study hall, designed to support their academic needs. The kids didn't give me much trouble about their homework, and I was always around to help them if they needed it. We also set up a 65-inch TV for streaming educational content and upgraded our internet to super-fast fiber optic. This way, the kids had access to all the resources they needed for both learning and entertainment. My evenings were often busy with driving them to their various activities, but their favorite was horseback riding. It became a regular part of our routine, and I started learning to ride myself, dedicating an hour or 2 each day to practice at the stables. Even Pete, my horse, seemed to sense my progress and responded well to my improved confidence. One day Olivia, who was at the ranch to vaccinate some horses, saw me riding back and said with a smile, "Look at you, getting all confident on horseback." I appreciated her compliment and replied, "Thanks, but Pete here does most of the work." Olivia then asked if I had decided when I would be getting my own horses. I'm almost ready, I said. I just need to finish up the barn, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. She offered to assist in finding the right horses for the kids and suggested we discuss it over dinner or drinks. I was thrilled at the prospect and agreed, suggesting we meet that weekend. The evening with Olivia was my first since Emily, and I was genuinely excited. We decided on an Italian restaurant known for its excellent food and wine, as Olivia wanted something different from the usual Texas barbecue. I was a bit nervous when I rang her doorbell, but when she answered, I was taken aback. She looked stunning in a dress, her hair down, and radiated a charm that left me speechless. "Wow," I said, "you look lovely." I opened the truck door for her, a gesture of good manners I'd learned from my mom. At the restaurant, we managed to overcome some initial awkwardness. We ordered drinks and started talking, and as the evening progressed, the conversation flowed easily. I kept my alcohol intake to 1 drink since I was driving, but Olivia had a bit more, though she maintained her composure. By the end of the night, she gave me a kiss on the cheek and thanked me for a wonderful evening. When I got home, the kids eagerly bombarded me with questions about my night out with Olivia. With the barn nearing completion, the following weekend, Olivia joined us for a trip to select horses. Michael and the kids picked me up in their new Suburban, which comfortably seats 8. Despite the kids' enthusiasm about sitting with me, Michael insisted I take the front passenger seat. We drove to a ranch south of town known for its young horses, as they often sold several each year as part of their breeding program. The drive was short, about 30 minutes, and during the ride, the kids excitedly discussed their preferences for horses. My role was to guide them in choosing horses that would be manageable for them. We avoided wild stallions and overly tall horses, focusing instead on ones that suited their riding abilities. We spent the entire day looking at and riding various horses, and by the end, we had selected 5 that were perfect for our needs. To celebrate our successful selection, Michael's family invited me to their ranch for a barbecue and a tour of their new horse barn. I was impressed by the barn's upgrades: new walls, a sturdy roof, solar power, a backup generator, a tack room, a wash stall, and ample hay storage. The LED lighting was on timers, and each stall had its own water faucet. It was a top-notch facility. After the barn tour, the kids showed me around the house, which was more like a mansion than a cabin. It boasted 5 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a vast library, and 4 fireplaces. Michael modestly remarked that the house needed a bit of work, but it was clear he had invested a lot into making it a luxurious home. The barbecue was fantastic, and the kids entertained me with their jokes and games. After they went to bed, I took Michael's hand and asked him to show me the master bedroom. We brought glasses of wine, and once the door was shut and the lights dimmed, I kicked off my boots and jeans. Michael, taking in the view, slowly unbuttoned his shirt. What followed was an experience beyond anything I had ever known. The night with Michael was incredible, hands down the best sex I'd ever had. It had been months since I'd been with a woman, and this was a passionate and intense experience. The sex with Emily had been more about revenge than desire, but with Michael, it felt different. Olivia is smart, talented, and beautiful, and I found myself drawn to her in ways I hadn't expected. Afterward, we showered, made some food, had a beer, and went back to bed for round 2. The next morning, I found myself grinning as I brewed coffee in the kitchen. The kids were startled to see Olivia there with me. Jessica gave me a questioning look, but the younger ones were too excited about the horses to notice anything unusual. They chattered about plans for the new arrivals and their hopes for the ranch. Renovations on the house were in full swing. We were overhauling the kitchen and bathrooms and integrating green technologies to enhance efficiency and lower our carbon footprint. Solar panels, a wind generator, and a geothermal heating and cooling system were being installed. We even deepened and widened the well, adding a storage tank for extra capacity and fire suppression. The septic system had to be replaced, and I upgraded the backup generator to ensure it worked seamlessly with the new systems for uninterrupted power. I was pouring a significant amount into these upgrades, but my financials were holding steady, thanks to a booming stock market and generous tax incentives for renewable energy. I was also setting aside some savings in fixed interest accounts as a precaution, ensuring we had a safety net if the market took a downturn. If worst came to worst, we could sell part of the land to cover expenses. As for Olivia and me, Our relationship had been developing nicely. Olivia had fit in perfectly with the family. I'd shared some of the backstory about my previous marriage and Emily's affair, and she'd been supportive and understanding. Her parents had also warmed to me. My mom had practically adopted them as part of the family, and my dad had grilled me with questions over beers, making sure I was the right man for Olivia. Tonight was special. I planned to propose to Olivia. I wanted it to be memorable, so I arranged a barbecue to celebrate the new pool and invited Olivia's parents. I had explained to the kids my plan, reminding them to manage their expectations. Integrating Olivia into our lives was a significant step, and I wanted them to be prepared. I was nervous but excited. After all, this was a big leap, considering my past experiences. Some might think I was rushing or naive, but I genuinely believed Olivia and I had something meaningful. Emily's betrayal had been painful, but it had led me to this moment. Now, here I was, about to propose to a wonderful woman who had brought so much joy and stability into our lives. As the kids helped set up the patio and prepare for the evening, I hid the ring box in a flower pot. When Olivia arrived, I led her to the center of the patio, surrounded by our loved ones. I took a deep breath and started, "Olivia, you've been an incredible part of our lives, and I've fallen more in love with you every day. Will you marry me?" She looked surprised and delighted, her eyes sparkling as she responded, "I was wondering when you'd ask, Michael." "Yes, I'd love to marry you." I slipped the ring onto her finger, and we shared a kiss as our family and her parents applauded. Just as everyone was about to join us, Olivia held up her hand and said, "Wait, I have something for you." She pulled out a small white plastic object from her pocket and handed it to me. I recognized it immediately. "Good thing you proposed," she said with a smile, "because you're going to be a father again." The news hit me like a wave. We celebrated our engagement and the news of our expanding family. Our son James arrived a few months later, a healthy 7 pounds and 11 ounces. Olivia and the baby were both doing great, and we were thrilled. The ranch continued to thrive. We started a small cattle herd and hired local cowboys for daily tasks. Olivia's father was instrumental in setting up our cattle business and was here almost daily to lend a hand. The kids' riding skills improved, and I grew more comfortable with horseback riding. I also got a side-by-side ATV for ranch work and started refurbishing and reselling pickup trucks and farm equipment, which was in high demand. Additionally, I launched a small construction company, taking on smaller projects to build our reputation. We hired 2 local carpenters, and my father-in-law kept a close eye on the business operations. If demand increased, I planned to expand and add another crew to keep up with growth. We were all settling into our new lives, blending into the community, and staying busy with various projects. One afternoon, as Amanda and I were in the foyer, the doorbell rang. On the video monitor, I saw a woman in her 40s, attractive but alone. Amanda, her face pale, tugged at my arm. "Oh, Mom, that's the woman who used to be my mother. I don't want to see her." With that, she darted towards her room. The woman at the door was Emily. I took a moment to compose myself before opening it. Emily's gaze swept over me briefly before she said, "Can I help you?" "Yes, I'm looking for Michael Parker." "I heard he might live here," she said hesitantly. "Yes, he does," I replied. "I'm Olivia Parker. What do you want with my husband?" Emily hesitated before responding, "I was hoping to talk to him and see my children." "Emily, isn't it?" I asked. "Michael is currently out of town, and the kids are at school. If you leave your phone number, he might call you when he gets back." "I could wait for him," she said, a hint of desperation in her voice. "That's probably not a good idea," I said firmly. "Michael has shared with me the pain you've caused him and the kids. He's worked hard to rebuild his life and be a great father. You've damaged that relationship a long time ago, and I'm confident the kids don't want to see you. I doubt Michael will want to talk to you either. It's best if you go home." Throughout our conversation, I kept a close eye on Emily's demeanor, noting her body language carefully. In Texas, many people keep weapons nearby, and I wasn't sure if Emily was having a breakdown or if she was seeking revenge. Watching her hands was crucial. If she reached for something threatening, I would have shut and locked the door and retrieved my own weapon. Our front door was reinforced with a metal plate, built to withstand a bullet or rifle blast by the previous owner for family protection. We also had an alarm system with a panic button that would alert the sheriff. Having grown up in Texas, I was taught to shoot accurately by my father, a National Guard veteran with an Iraq tour. Protecting my family was a priority, and we kept 2 weapons locked up but easily accessible. Emily stood there for a moment, tears starting to well up in her eyes. I really need to talk to him. I want to apologize for all the pain I've caused him and the kids. What makes you think he would want to see you? I asked. Maybe he doesn't, Emily admitted. But could you please just tell him I'd like to talk for a few minutes? I need to make amends. She handed me a piece of paper with her phone number and the name of the motel where she was staying. Here's my number. Please, just give it to him. I want to make things right. When I returned home with the kids, Olivia was waiting for me. She told me about Emily's visit. I was stunned that Emily had tracked us down. I had no desire to rekindle anything with her. If Emily hadn't understood that by now, she was clearly delusional. I decided it was time to call Emily's mother. I hadn't spoken to Emily's family since before I took the kids to Canada. I knew they would be curious about what had happened and where their grandchildren had gone. Emily had managed those explanations, and I had only been concerned with the safety and well-being of my kids. The conversation with Emily's mother was intense. It was filled with shouting, crying, and pleading. It became clear she was unaware of the full extent of Emily's affair with Ryan, which had lasted over a decade. Emily had concealed much of the truth from her family. I mentioned that I was considering a restraining order to keep Emily away and informed her that I had a new wife, a new son, and a new life. I asked her to convey to Emily that she needed to leave us alone. By the end of the call, I was resolute. Emily would not have any contact with the kids. When they were adults, they could make their own decisions, but for now, I was firm. Olivia agreed with this decision. The next morning, I contacted my lawyer in Albany and instructed him to get in touch with Ryan's lawyer. I suggested it would be in Ryan's best interest to convince Emily to return to Albany and leave us alone. If Ryan failed, there would be consequences. Olivia and I devised a plan to protect the kids from any further encounters with Emily. I was concerned that Emily might be experiencing a mental health crisis, believing that coming to Texas would somehow fix everything. Olivia's father even brought some of his weapons over for extra protection, but I assured him we were prepared, so he took most of them back after visiting and hugging our son James. My lawyer gave Ryan's lawyer a deadline and requested proof that Emily was on her way back to Albany. I knew I would eventually have to confront Emily face-to-face one last time. The next evening, around supper time, the doorbell rang. It was Emily. Olivia followed closely behind, informing me that the kids were in the library with the door closed so they wouldn't overhear. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "Hello, Emily." She glanced at me and then at Olivia. "May I come in?" I raised my hand to stop her. "If you came here hoping we'd return to Albany, you've wasted your time. We're not coming back. The kids and I have a new life here, and as you can see, Olivia and I are married and have a family. I just want to see my children," Emily said softly. "That's all I'm asking." "Why now, Emily? Why drive all the way from Albany? What makes you think the kids want to see you after everything you've done? Jessica and David know what you did, and Nicole and Amanda know you chose Ryan over us. Are you still with him?" Emily looked down and said, "Ryan and I are done." "And how does that change anything?" I asked. "Michael, I just want to see the kids. I miss them. Please, would you let me see them?" "I need time to think about it and talk to the kids," I said. "But it's not happening right now. Go back to your motel, and I'll call you." I needed to understand Emily's motivations. Was she having a breakdown, or was someone pushing her to do this? Regardless, I wasn't going to let her harm my family again. Emily nodded, gave me the name of her motel and her phone number, then walked to her old Subaru. She looked back at the house before getting in and driving away. Back inside, Olivia and I turned to find Jessica standing behind us. "What did she want?" she asked. That night at supper, I discussed Emily's visit with the kids. They stopped eating and looked at me attentively. I told them that Emily had asked to see them and inquired if they wanted to see her. After a thorough discussion, we took a vote. I wasn't surprised when they all said no. I knew I had to act decisively. I called Ryan. He was taken aback to hear from me. I had to repeat myself a few times before he grasped the situation. Ryan, your girlfriend showed up on my porch, violating our agreement. Get her out of Texas immediately. But what makes you think I can control her? Ryan protested. Wake up, Ryan. If you don't get her out of here, I'll consider this a breach of our agreement. And don't forget about your wife, Susan. You'll receive a package of information by courier. Do you enjoy your comfortable life in Albany? There was a long pause. Well, do you? I don't know what you're talking about, Michael, Ryan said. Grow up, Ryan. I'll destroy your life, your business, and everything you hold dear. You'll regret ever getting involved with Emily. You have 24 hours to get her out of Texas. More silence followed. Do you understand? I pressed. Quietly, he replied, I understand. I provided him with Emily's motel details. That night, Olivia's parents came over. We decided it was best if Olivia and the kids stayed with them until the situation was resolved. We told the kids only that Grandma and Grandpa had invited us over. After Olivia and the kids left, I waited to see what would unfold. Surprisingly, there was no further incident. Emily didn't return. When I checked with the motel, the manager mentioned some commotion involving a lawyer and another man, but they had all left shortly afterward. My lawyer called around midnight to inform me that Ryan's lawyer had confirmed Emily was on her way back to Albany. Ryan assured me she wouldn't bother us again. I later learned that Ryan had hired a local lawyer and investigator to find Emily, then flew to Texas himself to convince her to return to Albany. That was the last time I saw her. The next morning, life slowly returned to normal. Hold on to that horse. I shouted at Jessica as she practiced barrel racing with her pony. Hard right, hard left. Now ride hard to the finish line. She was making impressive progress, even if she wasn't quite ready for a major competition. Michael even got James a pony, and he takes him on rides. The horse is gentle, understanding it has a toddler rider. James is still very young, but I can tell he's going to love riding. As for me, I'm not riding at the moment because I'm pregnant again. I still do some vet work, but that's winding down as my due date approaches. Between the kids, the ranch, our businesses, and my pregnancy, Michael puts in long days. At night, he massages my feet and back, and we enjoy our intimate moments. Sometimes, sleeping in clothes seems to spark those moments. Sorry, I need to go pee again. These twins are always pressing on my bladder.